We will go right to the phones. Special guest joining us, Terry Prentice. He is the Senior Associate Athletics Director for Athlete Brand Development and Inclusive Excellence, and took over that brand new position in March of 2021. Also a former Razorback track and field athlete. And Terry Prentice joins us now in halftime, and which I'm assuming is another busy day in your offices specifically. Terry, how are you?
I'm well. Yeah, we've definitely been busy over the past couple of days, and was able to enjoy the 4th of July weekend, but certainly was on the phone quite a bit, but helping our student athletes, which is the most important thing, and it's been an awesome last week.
Well, and I'm assuming that yesterday felt like Monday times 2, but the 3-day weekend, everybody's got their email boxes completely filled up. So, so the last week, we focus on the last week, but I imagine there's just had to be such an amazing run-up to July 1st, which was the date that everything changed in college sports for name, image, and likeness, and the ability to profit off of that. So has the last week necessarily felt any different than the lead up to it now that athletes can announce these deals and sign these deals?
Yeah, I liken it to a sports season, right, where you do a lot in the preseason to prepare and to get ready, your off-season conditioning, your nutrition, and things along those lines. It definitely felt like that from the day I got back on campus in March until about June the 15th or so, and then it became more and more apparent to us that the NCAA was going to act by July 1. Although the Arkansas state law wasn't taking effect until January 1. So there was about a 2-week period where you started to feel like, okay, I'm in the heat of the battle. And the game time's actually here, and it's time to compete. And then once day one came on Thursday, it was, okay, we're prepared, and our student athletes have been prepared, but here we're in real life, we're in the battle now and we're ready to go. And so we felt prepared as we can be. For something that's fluid and continuing to change as we go on. But no, we felt prepared and are excited to be in it now.
Well, you can feel prepared, but for you probably knew exactly what it was like the moment that you first stepped on a big time college track, outside of high school, and it must have felt like, wow, I don't know if I was ready for this or not, but you knew exactly how long you had to run. When you're on the football field the first time, you're playing 4 quarters, so on and so forth. This whole thing right now feels like complete wild, wild west. We hear about, this deal with Miami where the entire team is being sponsored at $500 per month per player. I don't know if anybody would have thought about that. I wonder, as you're what, 9 years out of being a collegiate athlete at Arkansas. If I were to say, like, Terry Prentice in 2012 is able to look ahead to what college athletics is like on July 7th, 2021, would you have believed that what is happening now would have been happening?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, when I finished, we were just starting to have the conversation about cost of attendance, right? And student athletes being able to have something above and beyond room, books, fees, tuition, or student athletes being able to be fed an unlimited amount, which we are now, and not just having a certain number of meals per day, or us not being able to put peanut butter on a bagel because it was considered a spread and it wasn't a natural, wasn't a natural substance or natural food. So no, I would not have told you that 9 years later I would have anticipated student athletes being able to market themselves and carry themselves like businessmen and businesswomen, but here we are. And I definitely think back on my experience and start thinking of all the ways I might have tried to take advantage of my NIL. Might not have been too successful, but I definitely reminisce on it and think about myself and my teammates and other young men and women I went to school with.
Yeah, and Terry, it sounds like you're the perfect type of person to be in this position because you know what it's like to have been a student athlete. You know what it's like to have jumped through all of the ropes, and it seems like you're the right type of person to help everybody navigate the wild, wild west, as it's being called, of NIL. So as it's gone into effect and kind of leading up, what would you say was the most common question you got from all the student athletes at the University of Arkansas?
A lot of it's the rules. What can I do? What I can't do? What can I do? What's going to render me ineligible, or what's going to jeopardize my eligibility? But then at the same time, what do I say when an actual business or a brand or a company reaches out to me in my Twitter DMs or the like? And to that end, we've told them, be patient. Don't take every opportunity that comes at you. Take some time to think about it. Think about your own marketability. Think about the time of the year that you're maybe taking the field of the court, or you're in your competitive season. Maybe your brand's a little bit stronger during that time. Again, we're not tying any of this to our student athletes being Razorback athletes when they're appearing in ads and commercials or when they're starting their own businesses. But we all know that, you're a celebrity when you do something great on the field or the court, or you're named SEC Player of the Week, or your team just had a great victory. So think about these things as you start to plan out your future, and understand that you don't have to rush. And we all were ready for July 1st. They all were ready for July 1st. A lot of student athletes across the country wanted to be the first, and companies wanted to be the first to say they engage in this. But the approach we've taken is let's play the long game, and let's look at what might benefit you and utilize your NIL in college, and then what can help you beyond college, and what kind of relationships and roots you put down in the state of Arkansas.
And, obviously, hopefully it doesn't happen too often, but when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old young adults, mistakes are going to happen. And since there really isn't a kind of a guideline for how to deal with NIL infractions while NIL is legal for student athletes to pursue, on the flagship website, it talks about athletes that if they break the NIL rules, then there will be sanctions. What kind of actual sanctions will happen to athletes? Will they be fined? Will it be they can't play that day? I mean, because it is kind of a first case.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think for us, we're looking through more of, are we going to be approving the use of your NIL or not? And then not necessarily saying that a student athlete can't do something, because as we understand it, it's really a human right across the country for a person to utilize their NIL. Obviously, NCAA rules have been in place for its entire existence, but it's a matter for us of, hey, we're not going to approve you to work with X company, or this might actually harm you from an eligibility standpoint, because the Student Athlete Publicity Rights Act is going to be state law as of January 1, and we want to make sure that we're following that, or following our own policies that we've set forth. So more of the sanctions along those lines would be obviously not approving different activities, but also trying to keep our student athletes eligible and not running afoul of the rules, and also keeping an eye towards what might happen, again, from a federal standpoint with NIL and or the NCAA if they enact some policies. So that's really what it means along those lines.
Terry, I think flippantly I could refer to you as the NIL czar at the University of Arkansas Athletics Department. But I wonder, this flagship program is described as unique amongst other athletic departments. I know that this was the first of its kind specifically, but what is unique about flagship compared to what, just say other universities in the SEC are doing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and if you haven't heard Hunter say this, you'll hear him repeat it again. We've taken a distinct approach of having this be in-house, right? And many other institutions around the SEC or nationally, they've signed on with third-party companies to really manage this for them. Maybe more of their contractual agreement has them spending X amount per year for these companies to provide education and provide resources. Well, our unique approach is that we decided to have this be an in-house resource. We decided to hire former student athletes to help run this program. We've partnered with the Walton College of Business, which, for any Arkansan out there or affiliate of the University of Arkansas knows is world-class. We've got the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, which houses the Brewer Family Hub and the McMillan Innovation Studio. And if anybody knows anything about those names in Arkansas, you know that they're first class as well. So we just feel like our approach to things have been more in-house and doing what's in the best interest of Arkansas and keeping that or having that be our priority and our guiding principle the entire way. Doing something that's unique to the University of Arkansas and the state of Arkansas and keeping our priorities first. So not partnering with a third party, although we do have third parties that are helping us, but having the majority of the program and the education and all that be generated by the University of Arkansas. That's really what helps us be unique and helps us stand out.
So, what I'm hearing from you about the program is that it's dual pronged. One, to help student athletes do the best they possibly can through their personal branding and how to do this. Also, as they get older and use some of these skills in business. But on the other hand, you're also, I don't know if the term is right, but a clearinghouse to say what works and what doesn't within the parameters of flagship and NIL. So, and I don't need examples here, but I would imagine, have you had to say yes? Have you been able to, because it's much more fun to say yes than no. Have you been able to say yes more than no in this last week?
Absolutely. I do not want to be a but person. I'd like to be right, and add on to be able to add on to something. So yes, more often than not, been able to say yes. And typically it had not been a but. It's been, yes, you can do this, and I'm going to need you to take away these references to you being a Razorback student athlete, or this tag at Razorback, whatever the sport may be. But yeah, generally, more often than not, been able to work with our student athletes and help them take the opportunity that's presented to them and find a place where it works for the brand and for the student athletes. So generally, more often than not, we're student athlete centric. That's the name of the game. That's why we're all here. At the end of the day, our mission or our vision is focused on their success. So more often than not, yes, I'm going to be able to say yes. But there will be times where it might not be a hard no, but we're going to have them look at some certain aspects of whatever the activation is or the promotion is and make some changes to it to fit inside our policies and then that state law that goes into effect in January.
Well, I know you're well aware of the situation with this American top team in Miami, and they're sponsoring all the scholarship players there, and that obviously had to go through the Miami NIL department, however they've got that structured. If you were to get a call like that, like from somebody that, in a sense, it's like a student athlete pack, in a sense, how does that conversation start? And what are the things that would worry you with a group, paying all of the student athletes from the outside? Of course, they got to get something for what they're paying, but where are the things that worry you about that?
Well, no, I'll start with the end of your question. That's really where it begins and ends. Is there a good or service in exchange provided for activity by the student athlete? So what's the actual activation? Are they doing something that's legitimate for the commercial use of their NIL? And if the answer is yes, well, then we really don't have much else to discuss besides making sure the student athletes understand, is this an exclusive deal? Does this restrict you from working with any other company, period? Or is there a restriction that would keep you from working with a direct competitor, maybe an indirect competitor? How long is the term? Is this locking in, or is this locking yourself in for an entire year? And if that's the case, your marketability, as I mentioned earlier, might go up in another couple of months, and you might want to be able to either renegotiate or go back out into the market. So really, if an opportunity like that presented itself, it's not our job to tell them they can't, but more for us to educate our student athletes on things that they should be looking for. And again, if that's what the University of Miami did, it's great for them, and I'm happy for those student athletes. But, I'll tell you, we've got some really innovative and smart and creative young people in our program who are going to push back and ask questions just to make sure that it's right for them. Because at the end of the day, they're all going to be their own independent contractors and as we like to call it, the CEO of their own brand. And so if that fits for every student athlete on, let's say, the football team, then so be it, and I'd be happy for them. But yeah, those types of opportunities would definitely pass through our office. But that's what I would tell our young people if they were presented an opportunity like that.
And Terry, obviously, in today's age, developing your brand and being a young person and having all your social medias, one thing that I'm still a little iffy on, or I need to kind of be cleared up, and I'm sure you can clear it up, is when a student athlete is doing an ad on their social media. You know, they can't say that they are the quarterback for the Arkansas Razorbacks. They can't say, hey, this is first baseman so-and-so for the University of Arkansas softball team. But are they allowed to then, on that said social media page, also have pictures of themselves playing for Arkansas, have in their bios quarterback of the U of A? How much does that have to really be separated? Or is it just they can't actually say it in the one post that is for the ad, or does it have to translate throughout the social media page?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and that's something we're continuing to work through with our student athletes and continuing to pay attention and monitor and see if we need to tweak and change. But as it stands, the student athlete's page is their page. It's the social media post or the sponsored post that's on their page where, you know, the IP of the athletic department, the IP of the University of Arkansas is not supposed to be included because, again, these NIL opportunities are for them as just the student athlete and the individual themselves. But it's a great question, and it's something that we continue to work on and refine and help our student athletes understand, but more importantly, also help the companies they work with understand.
Yeah.
And to add something, the example we like using are the Chris Paul State Farm commercials and the Nick Saban Aflac commercials and so forth. Mm-hmm. Those have been great teachers as examples to our student athletes of how to go about doing certain things. And really what it looks like to be featured in some promotion for a company.
Terry, we'll leave it there. I know you went long with us and appreciate that with a lot of busy stuff happening. Thanks for coming on and good luck, exploring this wild, wild west and keeping it going.
No, I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on and really to your listeners know that, all of our student athletes across the board in different sports are already having opportunities. So just keep a lookout and support them in their endeavors.
You got it. Thanks, Terry.
Appreciate it, Terry.
Prentice, NIL Czar, Assistant Athletic Director at the University of Arkansas. Hey, if you're hungry right now, you got to get your hands on the brand new Scratch hand-breaded biscuit from Hardee's. Celebrate the summer with the new BLT Ranch hand-breaded chicken sandwich. Also the BLT Ranch Angus Thick Burger. It's a Hardee's BLT Ranch summer. Feed your happy at Hardee's. Locations at Fort Smith, Sallisaw, and Northwest Arkansas. Halftime right back. Don't go anywhere.